It's the Full Court Press with Eric Franson and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, answer. Yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here. All by my lonesome today. Eric Franson is heading off to Europe. He's going to be there for the Christmas holidays. I'll be here in Logan for at least a little while longer. I'll actually be in Preston this evening calling Logan High School as they take on the Preston Indians in boys basketball. I'll also be heading up across the Idaho border to Boise on Sunday, where I'll be there Sunday and Monday for the famous Idaho Potato Bowl as Utah State gets set to take on Washington State. We'll be previewing that game today. We'll also be previewing another Utah State game, which will take place on Saturday. And we're basically going to treat this like a Friday preview show, because I can't guarantee I'm going to have a show tomorrow, because Logan High School, they're participating in a tournament, 3 games in 3 days tournament up in Preston. They'll play today, tomorrow, and Saturday. And if they win tomorrow or win tonight, we will have a show on Friday, as that game would take place at 8:00, same as it is tonight. It's an 8:00 game for Logan tonight, but if they lose tonight, they will play at 4:40 tomorrow, which would basically mean that I won't be here during the time when we normally have our show. I won't really have a ton of time to pre-record, and all the stuff that I would pre-record, I'm going to be going over today. So just since I can't guarantee, we'll see what happens. But since I can't guarantee there will be a show tomorrow, I'm not going to try and push any of the preview stuff into tomorrow, because there's no guarantee that show is going to happen. So we'll be doing final previews of Washington State and Utah State today. Score predictions. So send in your score predictions. This is the last time you're going to have to text in, or potentially the last time you're going to have to text in any thoughts and score predictions for the Potato Bowl taking place on Monday. We're also not going to have a show on Monday because, well, the game will be happening and I won't be back in Logan until maybe not even technically Tuesday, depending on how long the drive takes me and how long the game lasts. So whatever your thoughts are on the game, we'll be going over. We'll also have some audio, a lot of audio today, actually. We've got interviews conducted by Utah State, or technically it was the Utah Statesman, which was recorded by Utah State. Interviews with Noah Avenger, about 8-9 minute interview with Noah Avenger, which took place yesterday while Eric was doing his interviews with Bryson Barnes and Gabe Iniguez. Carson Frost, the Utah Statesman, was interviewing Noah Avenger and defensive coordinator Nick Howell. We will hear those audios. They were recorded and published by Utah State, I believe, yesterday. We'll also hear from Jared Calhoun and Adlan Elamine in the second hour as they met with media today at about 11:30. And so some audio there, as we'll also preview Utah State's game against Colorado State, as that's a big game and looking like there's going to be a pretty good crowd from what I've heard. So we've got a lot to go over there. We've got some stuff about Utah State women's basketball. They ended a lot of not so great runs of recent history, some not so good streaks, with the win over Air Force yesterday, pulling away in the fourth quarter. We've also got more Utah State soccer transfers to talk about. A former Logan High School player signing as a transfer to Utah State. Also some NBA Cup stuff. And Joel Klatt commented on his kind of terrible take the other day and I'll maybe go on a bit of a rant about it later in the hour. But let's start with Utah State football. 2444. I'll get to your text in the second hour. Make sure to ping me if I don't get to it. Since that's a Utah State basketball topic, we'll get into that in the 5 o'clock hour. But we're going to start with Utah State football. And I wanted to play some of these audios, some thoughts from Nick Howell and Noah Avenger. And I'll also once we're finished with those, that'll probably take up most of the rest of this first segment, these two audios. But I'll give my score predictions, kind of my key offensive and defensive predictions, my keys to the game, the things that I believe need to happen for the Aggies to get a win over Washington State. So let's start with Nick Howell. And again, his thoughts as he was interviewed yesterday by Carson Frost of the Utah Statesman.
Oh, man, I think you see improvement kind of just all over the place. I think time just allows you to play better and get more comfortable in the scheme. I think something that's really happened is over the past month and a half to 2 months, the guys have just learned how to really practice physical and tough and get their assignments down and confidence. So those things.
For sure. It feels like there's particularly a breaking point after that Hawaii game. Hawaii was a bit of a struggle defensively, and since then it's been smooth sailing for you guys for the most part. Just kind of talk about that point in the season and just maybe some of the things.
I would say probably more the New Mexico game, because I think we went Hawaii, beat San Jose, lost to New Mexico, but New Mexico was a bad game for us, and we had a bad taste in our mouth, and we didn't execute the way we wanted to. There were some bye weeks in there as well, where we were able to self-scout and adjust some of the things that we were doing that fit our guys a little bit more. So there was a few things there. Yeah.
Talk about particularly just what we've seen with the secondary, because I think that first half of the season, you guys were breaking up just over like 2 passes per game. That's skyrocketed to 5 per game in the last 6.
I think, again, just consistency. I think having Ike back has helped. I think moving Noah Avenger to corner for Ike playing safety's helped a lot. I think it's just helped guys get in their position, get comfortable. We've had a number of guys that can play, and so substitution and competition has helped that as well. So.
Yeah, for sure. With Ike's return, I mean, just what did that do to just the overall continuity and just communication of that defense?
Well, I would just go back to, I think it allowed Avenger to play corner and Ike to play safety, and that's another better player on the field and another really good player at corner, and so I think that was more than anything.
Yeah, I think we saw like I said, passes broken up, that number went up. We saw maybe the sacks go down a little bit. I think that, there was more focus on maybe covering those passes rather than...
I'm not sure about, you go back and you look at the tape, and, I just go back to the Boise State week, like we had 2 sacks where we missed. We've had our share of, we call them layups, where we've been free and we've missed, and so there's nothing, I think, one way or the other. I just think, guys making the plays when they have to make the plays, and guys maybe missing at times when they've missed, so that's what I see.
Yeah, talking a little bit about this Washington State opponent, one thing they're very good at is just kind of those situational plays, whether it's in the red zone, 3rd downs and 4th downs. These are all areas that were more of a struggle early in the season, and you guys have made big strides in. Just talk about just the focus in your situational defense.
I think, again, it comes to time, continuity, running the same calls, being aggressive, gaining confidence. I think all those things have come together for us kind of at the right time, and those are the things I see.
Yeah, and this is an offense in Washington State that is very efficient, but can also struggle with turnovers at times. Turnovers is something you guys have been consistently great at all season. Just talk about just that particular matchup.
It's hard to say game to game, but you always focus on turnovers. It's being in the right spot at the right time, maybe knowing what play is going to happen before it happens, and then it's being confident in your assignment and playing fast. So I think if our guys are ready and prepared, then we can force some turnovers. So that's what we're looking to do.
What's maybe one thing you think that is missing that you could showcase in this last week to just kind of put this whole defense together?
No, that's a good question. I would say I would like these guys to go out and have their best performance and play to the very best of their ability. They've set some goals during the last 2 weeks of what they want to do, and if we can walk off the field and say that it was physical and it was tough and it was our best performance, I think we can all be really pleased with that.
Maybe what are some particular players that you've seen just make a massive leap from week 1 to now?
I think all of them have improved so much. They've done a good job, man. Like John Miller has had an amazing season. That dude, coming in, I don't think we realized how good he was. I didn't. I thought he was good, but he's played phenomenal. I think our defensive line has played great. Chris Joe and Matira have just gotten better and better. Some guys in the secondary have gotten better. I think there's been improvement all the way around. To like zero anybody out, I think it's pretty tough. I think the guys have just all improved a lot.
Just what would you consider a perfect bowl game in your eyes from the defensive side?
A perfect bowl game for a defensive guy. Physicality, laying it out there, seeing what happens. Not being cautious, being aggressive, and then just letting the chips fall and see what happens. And so.
Good luck, Coach.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate
Thanks.
your time.
All right.
So there was Nick Howell, the defensive coordinator for the Utah State Aggies football team, talking about the upcoming matchup and some of the things that he wants to see. And yeah, I know some of the things there at the end, talking about, a perfect game for the defense. I mean, a perfect game for the defense would involve a shutout. But obviously for him, he's looking more at kind of the process toward what would lead to that kind of performance. Playing physical. And, all the other different things, obviously, he was talking about that kind of go into that. But really, I feel like, there's part of me that when I look at this game, I look a lot at Washington State's defense. But as has been the case for, the last, plenty of games for the Aggies, their defense has played a very big role in whether or not they are able to be successful. You look at Nevada, where they shut down Nevada, a Nevada team that ultimately was improved later in the season. And they held them to 14 points. Pretty much all of those were garbage time points. They were in the third and fourth quarter when the Aggies had stopped. They'd put in some backups and whatnot and weren't really going all out. UNLV, a team that had regularly been putting up 30, 40 points on teams. They averaged 36 points per game. They hadn't scored under 30 all season, and the Aggies held them to an, at the time, season low 29 points. And that was in an overtime period where UNLV ended up, they had to score a touchdown. Without that overtime, they scored 23 points in regulation, which might be the season low now. Is UNLV's season low was 21 points, which they did in the Mountain West Championship game when they lost 38-21 to Boise State. But still, the Aggies played well on defense, and they were very competitive in that UNLV game and, really should have won it. Then they hold Fresno State to 17 points. They hold Boise State down pretty well. And until the end, there were obviously some slip-ups at the end. But still, and you go back to that Fresno State game where you look at the games kind of surrounding the one against Utah State. They scored 30 at Boise State, 24 against Wyoming, 41 at San Jose State. And sandwiched between those Wyoming and San Jose games, they scored 17 at home against Utah State. And I mean, you look at Boise State. I'm doing this blind, so I may end up looking like an idiot, but they score 49 against Colorado State, 38 against UNLV, and sandwiched between those two games is 25 at Utah State. Of course, they also scored only 7 against Fresno, 7 at San Diego State, and then 10 in the bowl game against Washington. So it's not like it was crazy for Boise State to get, slowed down on offense, but still, Boise State was in form before and right after the game against Utah State. So the Aggies certainly had something to do with slowing them down. And so the Aggies need to be in form again on defense. They need to be able to stop the run. And it feels like I've been saying that for every game for like 2 years. The Aggies need to stop the run. They need to stop the run against Nevada. They need to stop the run against Fresno State. They need to stop the run against Boise State. You know, all these different games. It feels like I'm a broken record, but it seems to apply in every single one of these games. You got to stop the run. Sure, this is a passing era of just football in general. It's obviously a college and NFL thing. But the Aggies have faced teams that tend to be better in the run game and establish a lot in the run game. In terms of, you know, then applying that to their pass game. And you look at the games where Utah State has, you know, done pretty well. Like, you know, they did allow Fresno State to actually have kind of decent yards per attempt numbers. But I think a lot of that came down to there was like the one long rush that Fresno State had. Yeah, they had a 69-yard run. And Fresno State had 178 total yards. Like a third of their yards came on one play. Take that out, and the Aggies pretty much slowed down Fresno State's run game. UNLV only 4.6. They allowed 146 rushing yards against a very good rushing team in UNLV. Nevada only 120 yards, 3.6 yards per carry. Boise State 171 yards, but needed 46 attempts to get there. That's 3.7 yards per carry. So the Aggies have done pretty well in slowing down the run of late, and they will need to do that again. And I think that will really, really help them against, a Washington State team where, they've not been a particularly great team on offense, but they've been able to do some things with the ground game and then feed that into their pass game where they can make some plays off of that. Their quarterback, Zevi Eckhouse, if I'm saying that right, he's got 340 yards across 10 games. He took over as a starting quarterback, I think 4 games in. It was 3 or 4 games in. He's appeared in 10 games. He's thrown for 1,700 yards, so it's about 100, a little under 200 yards per game, I think. If you count for games where he was splitting time with Jackson Potter, who was the starter at the beginning of the season, who got benched a few games in. So Eckhouse, he has 8 rushing touchdowns, and his yards per attempt is skewed a little bit, obviously by sacks, because that's the way we count rushing yards for quarterbacks. But he's someone that's going to cause some problems on the ground. You've also got Kirby Voorhees. He's got just under 600 rushing yards on the season, 5 touchdowns, and the numbers aren't spectacular, but they're going to be kind of good enough, and to make things happen. And one thing that I noticed, this is why I key in on stop the run, is that Washington State, in games where they rush for at least 3.7 yards per carry, if they do at least that, in the games where they've done at least that, they are, I think, 5-2. And their 2 losses are to Virginia by 2 points, the team that was in the ACC title game. It was a top 25 team in the college football playoff ranks. I think the AP as well. They're 1 win away from being in the playoff. They lost by 2 when they got that 3.9 yards per carry. So they're above the 3.7 mark that I've set. And then the other game where they ran for north of 3.7 yards per carry was at Ole Miss. That's another team that's in the playoff, a 1-loss Ole Miss team. They lost by 3 at Ole Miss when they were able to get above that 3.7 mark. For instance, they were at 3.7 when they beat Toledo. Decent Toledo team, 28-7. They beat San Diego State, a pretty darn good Mountain West team. They beat them 36-13 when they ran for 3.9 yards per carry. Not the gaudiest of numbers, but it shows that when they're efficient enough in their ground game, that then can feed over into their pass game, which helps them to be efficient. When they have to lean too far into their pass game, it gets them into trouble. Like, for instance, I know at the times when they rush for less than 3.7 yards per carry. In those 5 games, they're 1-4. And the one game that they won was against Idaho, an FCS team. And they won by 3. So that tells you how sketchy things got in that game, where they won it by 3. It was actually their worst rushing game by far. They gained 3 rushing yards in that game. In their other games, for instance, they lost to Oregon State when they ran for 3.6 yards per carry. A pretty rough season for Oregon State, and they managed to beat a decent Washington State team. They also, and some of these other teams they lost to are still some pretty good teams. James Madison, in the playoff. North Texas, a game away from being in the playoff. And Washington, a pretty solid team and one of the better offenses in the country. So, it can take a decent team to hold Washington State, to below that 3.7 mark that I've highlighted. But there are some teams that have managed to do it, even if they're not an elite defense. For instance, I mentioned those teams that have held Washington State below, again, that supposedly magical 3.7 yards per rush. Oregon State, they're 96th in defense, according to FEI. North Texas, they have an elite offense, but their defense is actually 74th. They're like slightly below average. And then Idaho, an FCS team, a defense that Utah State should be better than basically on principle by virtue of being an FCS team. Now, mind you, there are some good defenses. James Madison, they're 30th in defense. Washington's 19th in defense. So, of course, those teams were able to hold down Washington State. But there is proof of concept by defenses that have not had spectacular seasons to slow down Washington State's rushing attack. And again, that has been a massive key for teams this season. Shut down their run game, make them rely on the passing game, don't give them reliable, early down success in the ground game, and you can get Washington State off the field. And that's something the Aggies are going to need to do. We'll go over some keys for the Aggie offense along with my score predictions coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Thank you for letting Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat, the Allergy Clinic, and the Hearing Aid Center care for your family this year. Be sure to call us for an appointment before the end of the year to make the most of your cafeteria or flex funds. Located in Providence and North Logan, Cache Valley ENT also has offices in Box Elder, Rich, Bear Lake, and Franklin counties. The entire team at Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat wish you and your family a healthy holiday season. Go to CacheValleyENT.com for details. Most insurance plans, including Select Health, are accepted.
There's no better way to ring in the new year than the Riverwoods Conference Center's unforgettable New Year's Eve buffet. Enjoy an evening filled with flavor and celebration that includes deliciously carved herb-roasted New York steak and blackened turkey, along with entrees like teriyaki salmon, spice-glazed ham, chicken, shrimp, and more. The Riverwoods will also have an endless choice of appetizers, side dishes, and tasty desserts. Reserve your New Year's Eve plans today at riverwoodsnewyeardinner.planningpod.com. That's riverwoodsnewyeardinner.planningpod.com.
For the men and women who feed America and never ask for applause, West Motor Company salutes you. Thank you for raising the food that fills our tables, for your grit, your hard work. West Motor Company is proud to sell Ram and Ford trucks to help you do your job. So right now, farmers and ranchers can take an additional $500 off our lowest price. That's an extra $500 off every rebate, discount, and offer we can find. West Motor Company, 80 years strong and still driven to serve you.
At Mountain Valley Heating and Air Conditioning, now's the time to feel the love and the savings. With current tax credits and government rebates, save up to 40 and 50% on new heating and cooling systems. From residential tune-ups to commercial HVAC projects, Mountain Valley has you covered. Rebates and credits end at the end of this year. Take advantage today. Go to mtnvalleyhvac.com and start saving while you feel the love.
Over the past few years, strong and crazy weather patterns have battered various parts of the country. Northern Utah and southern Idaho are not immune from its share of wild weather. Be prepared for power outages with a Generac backup generator from Golden Spike Electric. They are your local source for Generac sales and service. Generac keeps you in control when bad weather strikes. Golden Spike Electric, powering your peace of mind. Online at gsegenerators.com or call 257-3016. They also service other models.
Across our valley, families and friends are gathering, sharing meals, stories, and long-held traditions this holiday season. I'm Lance Zollinger, president at Cache Valley Bank. For generations, you've trusted us to be part of your financial journey, and we're honored to be your hometown bank. This season, we wish you joy, safety, and meaningful moments with the people you love. You deserve it. Happy holidays from Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
So much of our lives are online today that it's hard to know if we're being scammed. Keep your online information secure with simple steps you can take today. To learn more, go to CISA at cisa.gov/secure our world.
I'm Julie Bowen. Our country has one of the highest rates of infant death. Let's work together for stronger, healthier babies. Visit marchofdimes.com to find out how you can make a difference.
In today's day and age, getting the right information in a timely manner is essential, especially when it's about what's going on in your own neighborhoods, in Logan and Hiram, in North Logan and Smithfield, in Providence and Millville, in Tremonton and Preston. Knowing the truth from trusted sources should be available to everyone in our community. Cache Valley Daily is committed to being your link to local news and sports. Know what's going on in your community. Visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome on back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with you on a Thursday. Previewing Utah State going up against Washington State on Monday. Again, as a programming note, we're maybe going to have a show on Friday. That's why we're doing all our previews today on Thursday. We maybe won't have a show on Friday, and we won't have one on Monday. And programming will be off and on for most of next week. Obviously, with Christmas being next week, we're not going to have shows on the 24th, 25th, the 26th. Basically, from Christmas Eve until the beginning of next week, or the week after next, we're not going to have any shows. I think we're going to have one or two shows next week. I'm not 100% sure if we're even going to have one on the 23rd. I've had these conversations with our program director, and I suddenly can't remember. We've had the conversations multiple times, and I still can't remember exactly what we were planning. So I'm going to have to go over that again. But today we're on the air. We're on the air for the full 2 hours. If you want to text in on any of our topics, text 435-339-0321. We were talking about favorite ways to eat potatoes yesterday. 8771 texting in early this morning, noting that funeral potatoes is his favorite way to eat them. So however you like to eat your potatoes, maybe celebrate Utah State going to the Potato Bowl that way. Try and get your tickets. We gave away a couple tickets yesterday. I believe it was 2603, I think, who won the tickets. So try and get yours. I'll be heading up Sunday morning to there'll be a press conference in the afternoon with both Washington State's coaches and players. And in Utah State, obviously Bronco Mendenhall and I think one or two players will be made available to the media for discussion just prior to the big game on Monday. So looking at Utah State, I talked a lot about their defense. All the keys for defense, I kind of boil it down to one thing, and it's never one thing. I oversimplified it with saying, hey, shut down their run game, but it's the kind of thing that can have a knock-on effect. I basically put it as hold them to under 3.7 yards per attempt. The only teams that have beat Washington State while allowing the Cougars to rush for 3.7 yards or more are a team that was in the ACC title game and a playoff team from the SEC. So unless the Aggies fancy themselves either of those, they're going to want to shut down Washington State's run game. 1-2 punch with Zevi Eckhouse and the running back Kirby Voorhees. You'll see Angel Johnson in there maybe a little bit. He's got 1 touchdown, 69 carries, 226 total yards. But you're going to see most of the carries come from their running back and quarterback 1-2 punch. So for Utah State's offense, and this is where I kind of have the most worries, I'm decently confident in the defense given the way they've played the last 4 games, where they shut down Nevada, they slowed down UNLV to what was at the time UNLV's worst offensive output in terms of points. They held down Fresno State. They really slowed down Boise State, who, as I was saying before, they were in form in the game before and the game after. So, and even though they lost 2 of those games, they lost to UNLV and they lost to Boise State. Well, those are the 2 teams that appeared in the Mountain West Championship game, and you lost by a combined 4 points in those games. You know, I think that you can count those as at least decent performances, if not sugarcoated a little bit more. So I'm very confident that Utah State should be able to hold Washington State somewhere in the 20s, maybe even in the teens if they have themselves a really good game on defense. They're going to be missing some guys. They're going to be missing Will Holmes. I don't think they're missing too many other guys on defense due to injury. There's some guys that have been out for several weeks. So it's like when I say they're not missing guys, they're not missing guys that they have had for the last few weeks. In fact, I think Will Holmes has been out for several weeks. So, or at least a couple. I can't remember if he played in the Boise game or not, or if he went out during the Boise game. But the Aggies are going to be about as healthy as they were against Boise State on defense. So I have some confidence that they're going to be able to perform well enough on defense to hold Washington State to a lower scoring output. I'm not nearly as confident in the offense, given one, they're missing probably their top playmaker. I guess outside of Bryson Barnes, who has often been a playmaker unto himself with his efforts in the ground game, where he's the Aggies' leading rusher with 733 yards. That's including all the sacks he's taken this year. So really, he's probably in the 850-yard range, maybe close to it, with how many sacks he's taken. He's got the 9 rushing touchdowns. But Braden Pagan, you're going to be missing him. That's a guy who's accounted for 926 receiving yards. He has been the incredibly reliable receiver for the Aggies throughout the entire season, and they're not going to have him. And, you do have Brady Boyd, and he's going to be able to take an increased role. But, I don't know if the Aggies are going to have the offensive punch they need, because this Washington State defense is dang good. They are really good on defense, and I have to emphasize that. They have played a lot of good teams and a lot of good offenses. Again, they played a playoff team in Ole Miss. They played San Diego State, who I've considered one of the best teams in the Mountain West Conference. They played Virginia, again, a team that was 1 win away. Heck, a couple of plays. They were in an overtime game against Duke in the ACC title game, and a win for Virginia gets them in the playoffs. They held Virginia to 22 points. They held Ole Miss to 24 points. They held James Madison, again, another playoff team, and they were on the road. They were on the road at James Madison. They were at Virginia. They were at Ole Miss. And none of those teams scored north of 24 points. And I think I outlined this the other day. There were 2 teams all season that scored more than 24 points. For reference, Washington State held 4 teams to less than 10 and 6 teams to 10 or less. 6 teams. 7 teams scored 13 or less. And every team that scored more than 20 was a team that either ranks, like inside the top 20 or just outside the top 20 in offense, or is a playoff / fringe playoff team. For instance, Virginia, they scored 22, fringe playoff team. James Madison, 24, playoff team. Ole Miss, 24, playoff team. Washington, 21st in offense, they scored 59. North Texas, I think they were like top 10. They were the highest scoring team in the country, 44.8 points per game. They had 59 against Washington State. And most of those games were on the road. At Virginia, at James Madison, at Ole Miss, at North Texas. Mind you, they'll be away from home in this one, so maybe that's a plus for the Aggies. But Utah State has a tough road to climb to getting points. And that makes me incredibly nervous on behalf of the Aggies. Just because I have a really hard time seeing them be able to put up 25, 26, 28 points against Washington State. Now, mind you, if they do, that actually gives them a pretty good chance to win. Because Washington State is 2-6 when they allow teams to score at least 10 points. They won 36-13 against San Diego State. They beat Idaho 13-10. Four of their 6 wins were when they held Oregon State to 8, Toledo to 7, Colorado State to 3, Louisiana Tech to 3. So there seems to be the trend, and that probably has a lot to do with like field position. When Washington State can absolutely shut down teams and dominate the field position battle, that helps fuel their own offense. Because those are also their other highest scoring games. They scored 32 against Oregon State, 28 against Toledo, 20 against Washington State, 28 against Louisiana Tech. Those are like most of their highest scoring games of the season. So if Utah State's able to get some offense going, that's going to help their defense as well. But I'm just not all that confident that the offense is going to be there. And that ends up kind of fueling my score prediction. And if you guys want to send in your score prediction to 435-339-0321, I've got my score prediction sitting at Washington State 26, Utah State 17. I think it'll be relatively low scoring, and I think Utah State will get enough explosive plays to get some points on the board. But they might have a quarter where they score 10 or maybe even all 17 of their points. Or, obviously I'm going to be wrong on Utah State score because they almost never hit it on the dot. But say they score 23 or 13. It's probably going to come in a burst. But I don't see Utah State being consistently good on offense throughout the entire game. And who knows, maybe a scoring burst is what helps them win the game. But I think Utah State's going to be a little too inconsistent on offense, and Washington State's just going to be able to grind out enough on offense to be able to stay ahead of the Aggies. And so I think Washington State will end up coming away with the win. I'd certainly like to see it go the other way. It'd be fun to see the Aggies pull off a win, get a win over a future conference opponent, Washington State. But I just have my doubts with the state of the Aggies, their state of their offense. Was losing one of their key players. And I think the defense will keep them in the game. But I don't think they're going to ultimately make enough plays. So that's my score prediction. Washington State winning this one by about a touchdown or so. Feel free to send in your score predictions. We'll have some more thoughts on college football, or kind of college basketball as well. Although, let's go over some other bowl games, actually. We're going to go over some other bowl games in the next segment, some thoughts there. Utah State soccer transfers. I think if we have time in the second hour, I'll go over some stuff. Joel Klatt following up on his take on the NCAA tournament. So we might touch on that when we get to men's basketball in the second hour. So let's take another quick break. We'll be back after this here on the Full Court Press.
Now here's a concept. You earmark a third of your profits to go back into the community to local charities. Dex Imaging does that. My name is Nate Lamson, and I'd like to share with you what I know about the company that acquired Valley Office Systems. Dex Imaging is committed to continuing quality customer service on your copier, printer, or office solution while raising the bar to become a strong community partner. Visit deximaging.com. We think globally, but act locally.
When's the last time you checked your tires? Make sure your car is ready for the snow with Master Auto Tech special, buy 3 tires, get 1 free, for up to $200 off. Utah winters are tough, but your tires should be tougher. With 22 Utah locations including Logan, Brigham City, and Ogden, we've got you covered. Hurry, this offer ends December 31st. Visit masterauto.tech today.
Your trusted, helpful expert, Master Auto Tech.
The chips and drinks are endless. The burrito is huge for only $7.95. It's got to be Cafe Sabor, Cache Valley's best Mexican restaurant and gold medal winner in the Best of Northern Utah contest. Experience Locals Day every Thursday with a huge burrito, endless chips and soda, only $7.95. Finding any lunch under $10 is nearly impossible. Every Thursday, drinks, chips, and a massive burrito. You pay just $7.95. The food, the fun at Cafe Sabor in the historic train station on 6th West and Center in Logan.
This is Jordan with Primrose Home Care and Hospice, and I'm here with Barbara. Barbara, how did you become acquainted with Primrose?
I had been trying to get another company to come and help me, and I had waited about 2 weeks, and I needed a bath. My neighbor suggested that she would make a few phone calls, and that very afternoon, Mark Stokes was sitting in my front room, and he said, "What do you need?"
Primrose Home Care and Hospice. We're your home team.
You've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. You have to carefully monitor your health for the rest of your life. And you have an increased risk of developing cardiovascular disease.
Cut. Take 2. Action.
You've been diagnosed with a new purpose: to fight for the amazing life you made for yourself. To look that risk of heart disease square in the face and say, "No, not me." You've been given a new opportunity to live. Get started at NoDiabetesByHeart.org.
The world needs more heroes, more action-oriented do-gooders, more "here's how I can help" right-hand men and women. The world of sarcoma is no different. And if you're thinking, what is sarcoma? We're glad you're listening. Sarcoma is a rare cancer of the body's soft tissue and bone, a cancer affecting tens of thousands of Americans every year. A cancer that has more than 70 subtypes, many of which require unique treatment options at various stages of discovery, and we lose thousands of lives to sarcoma in the U.S. on a yearly basis. The Sarcoma Foundation of America partners with heroes, do-gooders, and helpers from all walks of life to advocate for sarcoma patients through funded research and widespread awareness efforts. New and more effective sarcoma therapies are out there. We just need to work together to discover them and find a cure for this cancer once and for all. Now is the time to step up and fight the good fight against sarcoma. Join forces by visiting curesarcoma.org to learn more.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps demonstrate their commitment to defend the American way of life. Since 1775, wherever the mission takes us, we always remember the land we call home. As Marines, we take a stand for our nation, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
The Aggies, the Jazz, the high schools, the full court press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome on back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here, previewing your college football weekend, kind of plus one day. The Aggies play on Monday, so not quite part of the weekend, but you know they're in there. So you'll have your Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then on Monday, just as the weekend gets over, you'll be able to have the the bowl game, which will feel like part of the weekend probably to me, although I'm not really going to get a weekend just because, doing high school games today, Friday, Utah State game Saturday, travel up to Boise on Sunday, and then Monday I get the bowl game, then I'm back to work. But then it's the Christmas week, so I only get part of a week next week. So basically I'll get a delayed weekend. That's my life. Oh, it's such a rough life having to travel and do all that. But looking ahead at the other bowl games taking place this week, tonight you've got a 7 p.m. game, Missouri State and Arkansas State in the Xbox Bowl. Maybe players wanted to be in that one. I think every player on the team's got an Xbox or something to that effect. I thought I saw some social media post to that effect. Missouri State playing or having a somewhat close place in my heart. I went on an LDS mission, and my first area was Springfield, Missouri, which is where Missouri State is located. So, of course, Arkansas State being where Blake Anderson came from, so it's a team I keep an eye on. I don't know if they have a place in my heart just because a former Utah State coach once upon a time came from Arkansas State. But it's a team that the name catches your eye now that you've seen the association with the team you cover. Friday, there's a few games, including the start of the college football playoff. You got the Myrtle Beach Bowl, Kennesaw State, Western Michigan, a couple of teams that had really nice seasons as, G5 teams, Kennesaw State being 10-3, Western Michigan being at 9-4, Western Michigan being a 3-point favorite in that one. So that's one that I think, it's a 9 a.m. game. So, if you've already taken off work, or maybe you're at work and you got, ESPN on your phone or something like that, you can peek on over at what should be a pretty solid game. And then maybe during your lunch break at 12:30, you can watch Memphis against NC State. NC State is favored by 3.5 over Memphis in the Gasparilla Bowl. And then that evening, 6 p.m. on ESPN and ABC, you've got the first round of the college football playoff, Oklahoma, and the controversial inclusion to the playoff, the 3-loss Alabama Crimson Tide. Oklahoma favored by 1.5 in this game. This one being played at Oklahoma, it being a first-round game. So should be a fairly interesting game, largely for the amount of hate that you're probably going to see heading Alabama's way. And people, rooting for Oklahoma, who obviously, they're a 2-loss team. They're the I don't think I should call them the 8th seed, or do you call them the 8th seed? They're the number 8 team in the college football playoff rankings. But then they're getting to host this game. But I think there's going to be a lot of people, the Notre Dames, the BYU, who felt like Alabama shouldn't have been in because they're a 3-loss team. And, the fact that Alabama wasn't even really considered to maybe fall in the rankings, even though they were playing in the SEC title game and they lost. They didn't fall at all. BYU lost and they fell one spot. But it'll be interesting to see that. Then, of course, on Saturday, that's where a lot more playoff games get going. But you also have the FCS semifinals, the FCS playoff semifinals. I was reading FCS championships on the page and mix it up for the championship game. You've got, the college football, the FBS playoff games, you've got 10 a.m. Miami and Texas A&M. Again, Miami being a controversial add, at least to, Notre Dame. And then Tulane, Ole Miss, the entire group of 6 fandom rooting for Tulane as hard as humanly possible in this one. As they will likely be for James Madison, who will be taking on Oregon in Eugene. And my apologies to J.D. Walker, our resident Oregon fan and Oregon native, but I cannot root for Oregon in this one. Even though I typically like Oregon, I've got no problem with them. But really rooting for James Madison and Tulane. And on the FCS playoffs, the semifinal round, you got Montana State. Honestly, I'd be more likely to watch Montana State. I'm not going to be able to because I'll be, right in the middle of covering a Utah State basketball game. But I would honestly be more likely to watch that game than Miami, Texas A&M, Might watch Tulane, Ole Miss, James Madison, Oregon, just for the sake of supporting the G6 teams. But Montana State, classic college football. And then, of course, you got the, underdog who, according to some people, maybe shouldn't have even been considered. But Illinois State, massive underdog. They've got 2 big upset wins, and they're facing Villanova in the FCS semifinal. They're at 5:30, same time as James Madison and Oregon. And then, of course, Washington State, Utah State on Monday. But we got to take one more break. When we come back, we'll talk Utah State soccer. They added another transfer today. They've now announced 4. And today, a pretty big one. A starter, player who started 24 games for an NCAA tournament team in a Power 4 conference. We'll talk about her coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
When the snow starts flying, be sure your tires are ready. At Express Tire, they work with all vehicles and all tire sizes with safety and comfort a priority. As a Point S Tire team member, you're backed by a nationwide warranty that includes roadside protection. No appointment needed. Just stop in and they'll get your tires winter ready. 3200 North Main.
Express Tire. Tires for less.
Express Auto, where tires and service come together.
Ho, ho, ho! It's that time of year again when your friends at the Old Grist Mill will make you say yum, yum, yum. The Old Grist Mill in South Logan, and now Smithfield are ready to help you with all your holiday parties, co-workers, relatives, and neighborhood gifts. It's that famous one-of-a-kind bread, muffins, bagels, and baked goods of every kind. Don't forget that famous lunch special made just the way you want it. Be sure to get your special orders in now for the holidays. Best wishes and safe holidays from your friends at the Old Grist Mill, located in South Logan, and now Smithfield.
'Tis the season, and if you're getting engaged, bring that special someone to S.E. Needham Jewelers. You'll love our extensive selection of beautiful engagement rings. Also, you'll select a diamond from Utah's largest selection of loose diamonds. You'll find a unique ring at an affordable price with diamonds direct from Antwerp, Belgium at internet pricing. It just doesn't get better. And you may also take advantage of our 12-month interest-free financing. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7, where Utah gets engaged. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
Winter's here and that old car sitting in your driveway isn't getting any warmer. Turn that frozen junker into cold, hard cash with DD Auto and Salvage in Logan. It's never too cold, too wet, or too late to clean up and cash out. DD Auto and Salvage makes it quick and easy. They'll even pick it up for you. Get the most money possible for your junk vehicle or scrap metal and earn a little extra holiday cash while you're at it. Call 787-1204.
That's 787-1204.
And let DD Auto and Salvage pay you today. DD Auto and Salvage. Cold cars turned into hot cash.
I was in the hospital with my son for 18 months.
When he got injured, I wasn't prepared, but I knew I had to be strong.
When I was told about John's injury, I was in complete shock. I just remember rushing into his room and giving him a big hug and letting him know I was there.
These veterans and families are just a few of the heroes we serve at Homes for Our Troops. For thousands of severely injured veterans, everyday life is filled with barriers.
It was really the little things throughout the house. Counters that you can't roll up to. I had to drag my wheelchair down steps.
I want to help, but he is so determined.
At Homes for Our Troops, we build specially adapted custom homes with features like wheelchair access, roll-in showers, and automatic door openers that allow them to function independently and focus on their recovery and family.
This house is freedom. It's hope. It's a new beginning.
This house has given me my family back.
To learn more, visit hfotusa.org.
Following the local teams, it's the Full Court Press with Eric Franson and Jason Walker.
Christmas is coming, and so is the cold and snow. Batteries, headlights, wiper blades are all in stock and on sale now at your local Napa Auto Parts store. Fill up the Christmas stockings with air fresheners, snow scrapers, shop towels, seafoam, and more. They got Chemical Guys car wash and detailing kits at $49.99. And ending today, because it was yesterday and today, you can take an extra 10% off everything Milwaukee. So hurry in now. And you can also pick up the last bags of Blue Heat Ice Melt for just $10. It's on sale at your locally owned Napa store, all the way from Preston to Providence. So Last thing for this first hour, Utah State, they've announced several players transferring to Utah State this season. And the latest one, the addition is from BYU. They've got a transfer from in conference from San Diego State. And they also got a transfer now from BYU and a starter for the Cougars as a true freshman. Mia Lopez, the former Logan High School star, a younger sister to Whitney Lopez, who starred for also Logan High School, but also Utah State from 2020 to 2024. Had some key goals. She had a game-winning goal on a set piece against Boise State. I think it was the semifinal. I don't think it was a championship game. I think it was a semifinal. Helped send the Aggies. It was like a 0-0 game, and they were like, I think in overtime or just before, or maybe it was just before what would have been overtime. I can't remember the exact details, but I remember it was a set piece from just right of center. She puts it over the wall and in the goal. But her younger sister, Mia Lopez, went to BYU, started 24 games, all 24 games for the Cougars. And she scored 6 goals, was the second leading scorer. Mind you, the first leading scorer for the Cougars actually had 16 goals. They had a pretty dang good score at the top of their formation there. But second leading.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. The Seahawks look every bit like a team built for February. They've got dangerous playmakers scattered across the field, a defense that hunts in packs, and an offense that can put up points fast. The question mark, Sam Darnold. His resurgence has been one of the league's great redemption arcs. A former top pick finally delivered on the promise that once made him a franchise's future. But football is a way of revealing truth under pressure, and that's where their concerns begin. Because of all the gaudy numbers, 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns last season, the Vikings went 14-3, but his biggest moments have brought out his worst football. 3 high-stake games, he's 0-3. Week 18 against Detroit, that with the division on the line, 9 points. Last year's wild card round, same story, and a 4-interception meltdown to the Rams earlier this season. The full body of work still paints him as a franchise quarterback, but once again, the bright lights shine tonight against the Rams. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.